Real quick, I do want to say this. So I've got a Kaleidescape. I've got a Strato V, right? And a lot of people are in between whether or not they're going to get a Kaleidescape or continue on with their Doom player or whatever they use to rip disc or whatever. This is my honest opinion on this thing. I've had it for about 60 days now. Now, there are some things that I like about it, some things I do not like about it, some misunderstandings that I had about it that now I've come to realize, like, may have been just like, like maybe I was overthinking this. But as far as the Kaleidescape, I do want to say the cool functions is that you get the 4K full version of the movie way before anybody can on the disc. You know what I mean? So like Ballerina, for instance, with John Wick, I had that for, I think like, you get it like 2 to 3 months before disc, so people are still waiting for the Ballerina movie and I've already had it. You know what I'm saying? Well, I've got it, you know what I'm saying? And I could just play it whenever I want to, full quality, just amazing looking, right? Amazing audio, all of that. And it's the greatest experience that you can have with it, so that is an awesome thing. Like when people talk about the Kingdom Hearts and, oh, you can't find the disc anywhere, you got to get the steelbook and all of that, you can just download it on the Kaleidescape and it's going to be a better version than the one that you have like on disc. You know what I mean? For the most part with movies, like with that movie in particular, it's got more data on it than the disc, so it's going to look a little bit better and it's going to possibly even sound better than the disc, and I just downloaded it immediately. I saw somebody do a review on it like, oh, this is amazing, but they're sold out. I just downloaded it, and then that I got difference of opinions on that movie because I don't think the audio was as good as people say it is. I've got an Anthem AVM 90, one of the best processors out, and I've got really good subs, really good speaker system setup, and I didn't think it was all that. Like the visuals were really good. I'm running like I got two LG G4s, one in the house is a 65 inch and one in here is like a 55 inch. It looks really good, but as far as sound, it was just okay. But things like that you can do at the drop of a hat. Like when Thunderbolt came out, you can just download it. You know what I'm saying? The 4K version, yeah, you can download it on Apple TV, but it's gonna sound good and look good on Apple TV. But it doesn't have audio pass-through, so you're not gonna get like your processor really processing like the audio data and presenting it in the greatest way it can. But you will get that like on a Kaleidescape. Just like, your disc, your processor is going to be able to process it, or your soundbar or whatever will be able to handle it appropriately. You don't have to rely on the Atmos on the Apple TV, so I mean, those things like I like about it. As far as like getting the movies like way before people do on the disc, that's the truth, right? But it's not entirely like. So one of the things that they market is that, oh, you can get movies like as soon as they're in, while they're in movie theaters, you can still watch them on a Kaleidescape. That's a bit of a farce, right? For the majority of the time, when they're released on Apple TV is when they're released on Kaleidescape. And oftentimes they're more expensive on the Kaleidescape than they are on Apple TV. I don't know why. Maybe it's a different licensing agreement, or maybe Kaleidescape wants it to feel more premium, to charge you more. Maybe it's because some movies could potentially have a little bit more data. Maybe it's a psychological thing. People feel like buying it on the Kaleidescape versus Apple TV, or maybe, I don't know why they do it that way. But oftentimes movies are more expensive to rent on a Kaleidescape. Oftentimes that's what it is, right? And it's only rare occasions to when you can watch a movie that's currently in the theater on the Kaleidescape. One of the recent situations was Megan 3.0 was at the theater and was also available to rent on a Kaleidescape. So I thought that was cool, so, because I was hoping something like that would happen with Sinners and it didn't happen. What I mean? You had to wait until that. Basically, Apple released it and they released it at the same time, but it was way more expensive on the Kaleidescape. It's like $10 more. So that was a bit disappointing. But other than that, most titles, you are going to get them 3 months, 2 to 3 months before anybody can get them on a disc. And Ballerina, John Wick is one of them. So, while people are still clamoring and doing pre-orders and waiting for that to come out, I've already, I own it, and the 4K best version that they're supposedly best version that they're going to have the movie on. You know, so I mean that's happened quite a few times already. So now I see the great thing about it, right? Some people like to collect their physical media. They like storing it, they like housing it, they like playing with it, putting it in. I don't like doing any of that, right? I like my space, you know, I like the convenience of the Kaleidescape, right? It's a steep price tag. Is it worth the price tag? We're gonna get to that later. But I like the convenience and the quality that you get from the Kaleidescape. Now, if I'm running two movies, the same movie, right? Let's just say it's Brightburn, right? With it's like a Superman origin movie. On the Atmos on the disc sounds decent. The Atmos on the Kaleidescape, to me, for that movie in particular, Kaleidescape blows it out of the water. There's tracks that are missing on the disc that's on the Kaleidescape. Like when Brandon is flying through the house, he's screaming at the top of his lungs. You do not hear that on the disc at all. It's not even there. On the Kaleidescape, it's loud, it's impactful, it's big. They put every track onto the Kaleidescape, and because you know when you're mixing and mastering, you got different tracks, different layers of sounds, and I don't know, maybe it was like a constraint with data size or whatever. They had to remove some tracks for the Brightburn on the disc version, but there's some audio that's not even present on the disc that's present on the Kaleidescape, which makes, you know, for a great argument for the Kaleidescape. But that's, you know, not every movie is like that, right? A lot of times it's very, very small differences, like Transformers, what is Last Night, right? The Kaleidescape version looks slightly better. It's way more data on the Kaleidescape version, but it looks slightly better, just a little bit sharper, right? Audio wise is about the same on that Atmos version, and the Kaleidescape Atmos version is about the same. Nothing really different with that, but it's slightly enhanced picture because the additional data gives you a little bit more depth, you know, and the Dolby Vision looks a little bit better with the Kaleidescape. But a lot of this is going to depend on your display, which you got. I got the top of the line LG, so I can see all of that, you know. So for me, if I'm going to spend the money on the display, I want to see what it can do, you know. So the Kaleidescape kind of wins that argument, in my opinion, as far as like the best fidelity that you can get in picture quality. Now, a lot of times the movie size is going to be the same size as the disc, just depending on what movie it is, right? But very rarely, I would say, you're going to get like, you know, maybe 10 to 15, you know, gigs more data on the Kaleidescape version of the movie, but that's rare, you know, so it just depends on what it is. Also, one thing that I do love about the Kaleidescape, let's just say you're trying to buy a Resident Evil movie, right? You could just buy, like, you know, they'll give you deals on it. You can just buy a whole set for like $39 or something like that. You know, you could just do it right there instead of waiting for it to be shipped and then hoping that the package isn't damaged and all. Like, you don't have to worry about none of that. It's just immediate, you know. So I don't know, like certain things about it I'm starting to like a lot. One thing I don't like, I think is a little bit misleading. They say that Kaleidescape is the best experience, right, with the movie. Now, I'm having a different experience than that, right? Like I gave you some positive experiences. Now I'm gonna tell you, like, you know, more of a reality of dealing with it. Some movies that are Dolby Atmos on the disc are DTS:X on the Kaleidescape. You know, and this is something that they will not tell you. A lot of these people are dealer affiliates, or they're getting kickbacks if you buy with their affiliate links, or, you know, I don't know what it is. Or they trying to sell you something. Most people, if they deal in home theater, even if they just say, oh, you know, come by, listen to my home theater, they're more likely trying to sell you something or get you to buy something from one of their dealers or their affiliates. That's what happens in home theater. When I meet people, that's what it is. You know, everybody's connected in some way and they're trying to sell you on something. Now, the Kaleidescape, a lot of movies are not in Atmos that, you know, are on Atmos on the disc. And when I went to Audio Advice Live, it's like a kind of like an expo type thing. In 2025, I went to the Kaleidescape booth and I said, why isn't this movie, this movie, this movie, this movie, and this movie and Dolby Atmos on the Kaleidescape? But they have an Atmos version on the disc. And you know what they told me? Well, we get a certain file from the movie companies and they use a different file for the Atmos. Okay, so why don't you have both versions? You know, if this is supposed to be the ultimate experience, why am I getting DTS:X and not Dolby Atmos? right? Like that doesn't make any sense. I should be able to choose between which one that I want, and that is what you're gonna have to do with the Kaleidescape. Oftentimes, that is a compromise you're gonna have to make. You know that, and sometimes you're gonna automatically think in your mind, "Oh, this is the best version. Let me download it on the Kaleidescape," and then you find out when you start running that movie that it is DTSX, and there is no refund policy for that movie. You know, so that is a reality of dealing with the Kaleidescape unit. Now, as far as stability, is it a stable unit? No, right? It's had plenty of handshake issues. One of the handshake issues I've had with it is that it will, you know, my volume would say a certain amount on my processor, but it would be sound like 5 dB additional, like 5 dB hot, you know, so I would have to turn it all the way down sometimes if I start up the processor in a Kaleidescape, you know. So that was a problem, and I went to the booth and I asked them, like, what about that? They said, oh, it's an Anthem processor problem. Went to Anthem and they were just like, no, it's not an Anthem processor problem. You might want to go to Kaleidescape. So they kind of just like, you know, go back and forth, you know what I mean? Like, but then they ended up releasing like an update, which I haven't gotten it yet, which is supposed to fix a lot of these handshake issues with the Kaleidescape. So hopefully that's going to be a good thing, right? So that shows that they're trying to make progress and making this thing good. But I would like for them to go ahead and give Dolby Atmos for all of these movies out here. Now, a positive about the Kaleidescape, there are 4K movies that have not made it to disc, right? For whatever reason. I don't know if there was a distribution problem. Maybe the companies didn't think it would be profitable to release it in this version, but the movie is being redone in 4K, and Kaleidescape has it, you know, so that's a great thing, you know. So I found that quite often. Also, there are some movies done in Dolby Vision, right, that are not Dolby Vision on the disc. And Blade Runner 2049 comes to mind. That's one of them, where they have a HDR version on the Kaleidescape and a Dolby Vision version on the Kaleidescape. HDR version looks way better. More than likely, that's why the studio went ahead and just opted to use the HDR version. Looks way better. But with the Kaleidescape, you could choose which version you would like to watch, you know, which I think that's cool for some movies. Right now, when you look at an HD movie, you might as well just get it on disc if you want. Like HD movie, it doesn't look any better on the Kaleidescape, anything like that. You know, you know what I mean? So Kaleidescape, primarily my use case scenario is like if it's a new movie, it's hot, you know what I mean? I want to watch it and my system and the best quality that I can have. If it's an Atmos movie or whatever, I'm going to download it on the Kaleidescape. Now, sometimes, right, this is going to sound a little bit interesting, right? Now, some movies may be in Atmos on the disc and on DTSX on the Kaleidescape, but sound better in DTSX on the Kaleidescape than Atmos on the disc. So that is interesting, right? Now, I prefer Atmos because I like the spatial cues of like this, what the sound's supposed to be. Sound, you know, I got, you know, 7 bed layer speakers, 4 heights, you know, rear surrounds, all of that. The front heights, I got subwoofers in there. I want like my sound to move around, you know, so I like Atmos. And yeah, I understand DTSX has, you know, spatial cues as well, but I don't think it does it as well as Atmos. Now, in terms of being loud, you know what I mean? I feel like the Kaleidescape is louder. Even with the Atmos tracks, I feel like it's a little bit louder. To me, it feels like the Kaleidescape is mixing Atmos and DTSX, right? So when you're watching an Atmos movie, it sounds like it's a mixture between Atmos and the great parts about DTSX, which is the loud aspect about DTSX, right? So that's a good thing, you know what I mean? But as far as all the marketing promotion, these people were trying to tell us about Kaleidescape, oh, it's this and it's that and it's the greatest. There's positives and there's negatives with the Kaleidescape. Now, after 60 days owning this thing, do I feel like it is worth it? To me, in my use case scenario, yes. Because I like having the disc 2 to 3, you know, not the disc, but the 4K version 2 to 3 months early. I don't have to burn it, you know what I'm saying? I don't have to do any of that. It's just there. You know what I mean? The one thing I don't like about Kaleidescape, it does take about, they say 10 minutes for a movie. No, it could take like 15, 18 minutes. And, you know, maybe it depends on your internet, right? If you got fast internet, maybe it's faster. I think they're capping it you know, to try to force you to buy a Terra server. And I think that's, you know, it's just another spit in the face to the consumer, right? One of the big problems that I'm having with the Kaleidescape is the UI, right? Very smooth, slick, but this is a 1080p UI, right? And this thing is a $4,000 unit, $4,200 unit with a 1080p UI. That is a slap in the face. Now, you know, on my TV, it looks good, right? But if I had a big projector, you know, like that would, like my friend's got a projector and he's got a Strato V and it does not look good. Like when he's like moving, through the menu, it doesn't look good. It's ghosting and all of that. It doesn't look good. The Strato C has the 4K UI, you know, so at least update the UI. Y'all could do a software update to do that. Like that's pretty ridiculous. You know, if you ask me, like 1080p UI with this price point. You know, like if y'all can't give us storage, at least give us a decent UI, you know. But as far as Kaleidescape, I wouldn't recommend it to people. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't. My use case, I just like to have the best of the best, you know, when possible. If there is an Atmos variant or version of a movie, I'm getting it on the Kaleidescape. You know what I mean? Because it's gonna look slightly better and it's gonna sound better than me running it through a UB820. You know, even though I think it has pass through too and all of that, for some reason the Kaleidescape versions always sound a little bit better. Like Ghost in the Shell, if I'm running it with the 4K UHD UB820 Panasonic, it still sounds better on my Kaleidescape. I don't know why. I don't know why it does. You know, because I think the Kaleidescape only does like 48 kilohertz, and then the UB820 does 192 kilohertz. But, you know, from what I understand, like that doesn't really matter because it's passed through anyway. So I don't know why it just sounds better coming out of the Kaleidescape, but it does. You know, but to be able to start a movie and to pass the menu and to pass all the logos, y'all don't understand how much time that is that you save with the Kaleidescape, and I love that. You know, and to be able to bounce around in different movies, yeah, and you can only have 9 to 10 at a time. Yes, but it's cool to be able to have 10 of the most watched movies that you watch and to be able to just jump around to different scenes that you like. And it's like, I can be watching a movie, I can get out of the movie and go into another movie and go to the scene I want in like maybe 6 seconds or less. That's phenomenal. You know, I haven't seen a Doom player do that. I haven't seen like anything do that. You know, so that is, in my opinion, like worth the price of admission to me to be able to do stuff like that. You know, and it's fun. You know, it's the user, you know, it's slick. One thing that I do like about it, you might forget that some movies are out, right? You just look through the store and you see all kind of stuff. And to rent a movie is like $7.95. Now, I think the pricing needs to be adjusted, right? Because if a movie is really old, $7.95 is too much money for an older movie. You know, like if I rented Mortal Kombat, the original, it was like $7.95. You know, that should be like a $2.99 or $3.99 movie. That's ridiculous. It's not, and it's an HD movie. It's not anything better. You know what I mean? Like, so that the pricing scheme needs to be fixed. And I don't know if that's just purely studio or what it is. You know what I mean? Because I feel like Kaleidescape is just trying to make as much money as they can off the hardware. And that's the thing that's troubling to me, because it's like, y'all just are trying to price gouge people. Oh, well, we're just looking for certain clientele. Yeah, you're looking for clientele that's going to give you all their money. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. But I do feel like Kaleidescape in some, you know, instances can be worth it. If you have a home theater and you spent the money on everything else, you got the dope speakers, you got a good processor, you got Atmos speakers, you got your room treated, you know, all of that. You got your nice seating. The Kaleidescape should be the last thing that you do, you know, and because I have it now, I can like weigh it between the, you know, my 4K player and, and see what the difference is. And oftentimes the Kaleidescape's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. You know, the tone mapping is okay on a Kaleidescape. It's not bad. You know, the UB820, you can adjust the tone mapping, but it's like, when there's a close-up on an image with the UB820, it was a very, very good player. And it floored me. I thought it was so good before I got the Kaleidescape. All right? But now if I see like a close-up image of somebody and it'll click in my mind, like if I'm watching the disc version, like, man, I seen this on the Kaleidescape, it's way clearer. You know, now that I have it, I can like, you know, tell. Like, but if you have like a Oppo 203, 205, whatever it is, you know what I mean, and or a UB9000, UB820, and UB820, and UB820, UB9000 is the same thing, right? Right, playing it. Other the UB920 just UB9000 just has the 2-channel listening thing, but you will think those players are great until you get a Kaleidescape. Then you will see there's a difference. You know what I'm saying? A slight difference, but there's a difference. You know, so am I keeping it? Yes. You know what I mean? The convenience, like, it's just, I just love the convenience. You know, and if they're like Tron, I can't wait for the movie Tron to come out, right? I don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters, you know, because now that I have a theater set up, my system sounds way better than theaters. You know, so I don't know. Even the Dolby Atmos theater in my system, I got an Anthem. You know what I mean? I feel like it sounds better than the theaters. So, you know, I want the Tron movie as soon as I can get it, you know, and that would be the Kaleidescape route. You know, and it's not just for the Tron movie, but it's like other movies that, you know, you get the 4K versions immediately. You know what I mean? As soon as it, you know, is released, and you don't have to wait 2 to 3 months for the disc. You know, but there are some movies that are not going to be on Kaleidescape. You know, like Godzilla -1, or, you know, Criterion Collection movies, or Arrow disc movies. But a lot of those movies, you know, if you're a collector, you're just going to go buy the disc anyway, right? And, you know, one thing I do want to say about Criterion and Arrow and all of these, they don't have really good quality. You know, these guys who do these 4K UHD reviews, you know, I know they may have some sort of deals with them or something, or sponsorships or something. Like, some of those movies look terrible. Like, they're too hot. Like, the gamma is too hot. Like, on the color grading, like, it's just, you know, they just boost everything up and oversaturate everything. And a lot of times it's not even worth it. You know, it's just what it is. You know, but shout out to them for trying and trying to keep, you know, people to continue to collect. But their pricing is like super high for the movies and stuff like that. I don't think it's really worth it. But, you know, Criterion, I will say, shout out to Criterion. I think they do a decent job. Arrow, not so much. Criterion, I think they do a decent job. But, you know, as far as a Kaleidescape, I like it. But, you know, beware of who you're listening to. You know, if you just using this thing like to rent movies when they just hit 4K UHD quality, or buy them brand new when they first hit, you know, and not wait for the disc, go ahead and do it. But if you thinking that this is like a night and day difference between discs, it's not. It's slightly better. You know what I mean? And in some cases, the disc is going to have Atmos and the Kaleidescape won't. You know, so y'all tell me what y'all think down in the comment section below. Comment, rate, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about that. Peace.